King Julien has had some pretty weird romances in the past. Some people thought that he might have had some kind of secret relationship with Marlene from the Penguins TV show. At one point he had a slightly abusive relationship with a bear, but none of these potential romances even compare to the mystery of him and his personal head of security, Clover. It is shown throughout the series that King Julien enjoys playfully interacting with Clover despite her strict personal space. They grow really close, potentially a little more than meets the eye. I think that there might have been something going on between these two, and today I'm going to uncover what that is exactly. Now, this video is going to be very distant from my other theories because this is just a side theory. It doesn't really affect the DreamWorks theory in any way, so this is just going to be more of a fun video. And also one more thing, every theory that I make on the channel is completely fan-made. None of it is really meant to be taken seriously. I just enjoy analyzing different parts of media and discovering potential hidden secrets behind the mask. Don't get a big head about it. This video will have to be done a little bit more differently compared to usual. In order to process the history between these two, I'm gonna have to go through everything throughout the show that will give us hints about them that was put up front. No close analysis yet. Skip to this time frame to avoid that when we get to the real theorizing. In the first episode, which is King Me, Julien proposes repopulating the kingdom with Clover, and later on in the episode he promotes her to commander of the Ringtail Guard for her bravery, much to her joy. This is all within a day or two of meeting her. At the end of Crimson and Clover, King Julien mistakes Clover's sibling rivalry as jealousy and asks her if she's sure that's all it was. Maurice does the exact same, by the way. This is all when she admits that she shouldn't have meddled with Julien and Crimson's relationship. This may reveal that Julien wishes she had been jealous, showing that he had an interest in her, perhaps. In Body Double, King Julien misinterprets Clover's inspection of his butt as flirting, saying, "Oh Clover, we don't have time for this," before being interrupted by her. In Revenge of the Prom, when Julien runs off sad, Maurice is about to go after him, but then Clover stops him and immediately insists that she goes and talks to him, and then when Maurice hugged her, she felt really awkward and forced Ted to step in for her. In The Never-Ending Clover, when Clover falls unconscious after an accident, Julien panics and shrieks in order to wake her up. In the same episode, Julien's hurt is shown when he sadly says to Clover, "I'm not even important enough to you to be a main character in your story." He is upset that Clover does not treat him as important as he believes he treats her, and is saddened that he is not of higher importance to her in her life and in her stories. Possibly because he has feelings for her. In On King Me, Julien is annoyed with Clover's excitement when Kodo returns, perhaps due to jealousy that Clover was attracted to or wanted to pursue a relationship with Kodo. In The End Is Near, Julien seems very upset when Clover announces that she'll be moving to the Mountain Lemur Kingdom after marrying Sage. He seems very distressed about it, and in The End Is Here, Julien says that he loves Clover and that if he could have had a really violent sister, he would have wanted her. Now, time for analyzing. There were several hints throughout the show that gave us the sneaking suspicion that the two of them were closer than we should think, like for example how Clover needs her so-called personal space, but then when she's around Julien and he touches her in whatever way, she doesn't really feel like she wants to put a bullet through his head. So if they did get together at some time, when was it? Well, I have reason to believe that Clover started to grow feelings for Julien around the beginning of season 2. This fits in well with the more visible romance scene between Julien and Clover's twin sister, Crimson. The first two meet when Crimson comes to the kingdom to find Clover. Her fun energy attracts Julien right away, and the two spend time doing risky things together, much to Clover's dismay. They begin a romantic relationship together, kissing under the stars the first night that they meet. Later, Julien and Crimson announce an engagement and begin to plan a wedding that Julien is not prepared for at all. Intimidated by the idea of marriage, Julien backs out on the day of the wedding after hearing that he will be bound to Crimson forever. This leaves Crimson heartbroken, and she leaves the kingdom seeking revenge. Clover was clearly jealous of the king's romance with Crimson. I believe that once Crimson left, Julien hit a bit of a hard spot where he wasn't really interested in anyone, up until that one incident in Body Double where Julien sparked some feelings for Clover. But throughout the rest of the season, it quickly faded away, until late season 3 to early season 4. There is a lot of stuff here to suggest that these two have something going on, most notably in the episode Eye of the Clover when Julien begins to get overprotective of Clover. He is outraged when Clover gets an invite to a fight to the death tournament. Maurice asks Julien about why exactly he's been so hard on Clover recently. Julien responds saying that he's worried about her and that he doesn't want her to get hurt. This is something that he only tells Maurice about, his best friend, so clearly he's not comfortable with sharing this information with others. But the most suggesting moment in my opinion isn't even in the same episode. In the episode beforehand, Julien finds out that his entire school life was completely fake and that people were only being friends with him and treating him nice was because he was royalty and they had to. He runs off and Maurice begins to go after him, before Clover, of all people, stop him and say that they'll do it instead. Maybe it was a chance to get things straightened out with Julien, maybe even to tell him her feelings. Obviously nothing actually ended up happening, but it made a big chunk in this theory. The seasons go by, and early season 4 Julien gives Clover her own show to make her happy, and in the very next episode he is outraged when he finds out that he is not important enough to be a main character in her stories, whereas Maurice and Ted somehow are. This is around about when I'd say that Julien began to develop affection for Clover once again, but she doesn't really feel the same way. In fact, at one stage at the end of season 4, Clover gets a fat crush on this dude called Koto that actually turns out to be evil, and there are points where Julien looked pretty annoyed by Clover's feelings for Koto. Then there goes about a straight 11 episodes where they don't even see each other, and then we finally get to the last season. There isn't really much here going on, but in the episode Squad Goals, Clover gets very jealous of Julien's interest in his consultant Eloise, and what she does, she tries to be seen by him as a fan as well, whereas she just hates her. But the thing that I really want to pick up on in this season is the last episodes. Julien finds out that Clover is going to marry this guy called Sage that they've known for basically the entire duration of the show. She tells him that if she marries Sage, then she has to leave the kingdom. Julien is clearly distressed by this, not because of the fact that they won't have any defense, but just because he genuinely doesn't want her to go. And then when it's confirmed that she is marrying him, Julien decides to put aside his feelings to help be the best wedding host possible in support of Clover and Sage. That's so cool. And that monologue given by Julien was just perfection. It was so beautiful with how he talked about the friendships that he'd made along the journey of the show, the bonds that he'd been gifted with, and then he fully places his focus on Clover. In conclusion, yes, I do think that Julien and Clover had feelings for each other throughout the show at several points, but it was never really meant to be, and honestly, I prefer them as just friends. It wouldn't make much sense to do that, being that the show takes place right before the events of the franchise, but also just because it seems like a better fit for them. Julien and Clover have great chemistry, and I prefer them more as just friends. And in a way, you could compare these two as sibling figures. Julien literally says in this monologue that if he could have had one really violent sister, then he would have chosen Clover. In fact, all of these guys could be viewed as sibling figures, and I think that counts the most. You don't always need to have some kind of unnecessary romance in your show or movie just because why not? Do it because it's right for the characters. And All Hail King Julien hits that spot perfectly. Would I like to see what could have happened if Julien and Clover actually got together at some point? Of course, but it wouldn't be right. I freaking love this show and all of the characters in it. And why should we let a boring cliche like Julien and Clover getting together stop us from doing that? Thanks for watching. Comment your thoughts about whether or not Julien and Clover would have made a good couple, and of course, subscribe to the channel. Animationologist out.